as kind of a counter to Ashe and or Varus in the bot lane. Those both very immobile carries. Wukong Senna, especially at level 6, just does so much damage against that, you know, Wukong's going in, an arrow from Ashe, a chain of corruption from Varus is just not going to stop a Wukong who's just cycloning on their head, right? He does so much damage. You're knocked in the air, you can't go anywhere. And Senna's just poking out. The grass build has been good as well for her. So I think that the Wukong Senna we might see in this game is a little bit more of a niche pick that needs a little bit of practice. So I think for, you know, non-professional teams, it's probably a little bit harder to pick up, but probably also a little bit easier to get kills, right? Because the bot lanes you're against aren't quite as skilled, maybe not quite as used to playing against it. So I think that the Wukong Senna is very, very strong if you know what you're doing with it. And so I think we may see that come out as a counter pick to Varus, although it is a little bit risky just because this is a best of one. If you're not quite as practiced, if it falls super far behind, it could be a big problem.
Yeah, and on top of that, you know, it's one of those picks where it's very situational. You have to know that you're up against the Varus or the Ashe or something of that like. And when you have something like a Senna in the bot lane, it can be very explosive or it can be very behind as well. It can be used as a flex pick still, although a lot of people don't like running at support. We have seen teams do that in the past in the professional scene. Any other meta picks that really stand out to you before we head to champ select?
Not particularly in like super OP front. I think the Kalista is also still a strong pick that people could be picking up in the bot lane. Offers a lot of pressure. Kalista Set can be strong. Kalista Pantheon I've even seen can be strong. A little bit more play in Europe than it is in NA, you know, both in solo queue and in professional play. So I'm excited to see the potential for Kalista to come out. I think she's risen in popularity just a little bit more because of the fact that, you know, Aphelios has been taken down, Ezreal's been taken down a little bit, and so she has a little bit higher priority going into these games.
Yeah, and we are just about to get in a champ select in a couple seconds here. Kralovina Serbia versus Galactic eSports coming out in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1, and we are into the draft. Kralovina Serbia, of course, on the blue side. Galactic eSports on the red.
Again, so we are now into the draft here. Kralovina Serbia on the blue side, like you said. Galactics eSports on the red side. Kralovina Serbia looking to go 3-0 up against Galactics eSports, who's trying to improve to 2-1, trying to get a winning record for themselves here as the Vel'Koz and Ezreal have already been banned away.
All right, and the Vel'Koz, of course, actually banned towards Galactic eSports support here, so a nice little target ban coming out from the side of Kralovina Serbia. But, you know, when you look at these target bans, it's like, okay, how high priority is it? It's very high priority. This man's been spamming the Vel'Koz and the Thresh, so lots of targeted bans towards that bot lane support. We have the Aphelios being banned away. Both AD carries like picking this. Might be a first pick as Ezreal potentially, as we see the Ezreal actually already being banned away, as well as the Rek'Sai and Elise, as you had mentioned before, champ select.
Yeah, there's no reason not ban the Elise. That was a lot of negatives. I do apologize for that. No reason not to ban the Elise. It's so high priority for both these junglers. Definitely first pick worthy. I think it makes a lot of sense to be banned away. Trundle's been picked up as well. This is a pick we saw a lot last week as well here in Howling eSports. So has a lot of tank shred potential, kind of countering out the tank meta, right? It's really, you know, really hard to pick Sejuani and Ornn into a Trundle, right? Because one of them is going to just get shredded. He's going to be so tanky. And so I think that's going to be Hyaxa playing that Trundle. That's what we've seen previously come through, especially with those jungle bans. I think the first pick jungler makes a lot of sense. On the other side, Galactus has picked up the Kindred, a pick we haven't seen a ton, but definitely can do well against Trundle. No tank stats basically of any sort to steal away, and can kite him very well, can go over the pillar, etc. Volibear picked up as well. A lot of power picks coming through the set. Volibear match in the top lane is one that has kind of become very standard in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and on top of that, right, both are technically flex picks. You can put Volibear towards support, although I don't really see that towards the Kralovina Serbia support. And in fact, they decide to pick up the Blitzcrank there. Set, of course, can be paired with the Senna in the bot lane, but we already see the Leona being picked up, so no real flex pick surprises there. The Blitzcrank pick, though, I think is very interesting as we get into the second round of bans, Akali being banned away.
I think the Blitzcrank pick is dangerous in this game. Just against the Leona. Obviously, Leona hadn't been picked. at the time, but I think it's risky if you're going to be pulling a Kindred in with her ultimate, if you're going to be pulling in a Leona with all that crowd control, if you're pulling in a Set who can just ult somebody right back out with the showstopper. I think Zonx is going to need to be on something that's at least a little bit mobile in this game, or I think he could find himself in a lot of trouble against this crowd control that could end up kind of just getting pulled in. I know that's never the goal, right? You want to be pulling in one of those carries, but there's always, that risk. Somebody flashes into the hook to try to make a play. Somebody just, gets hit by the hook by mistake. And so I think there are risks actually to this Blitzcrank pick. Pulling in a Leona is not always the greatest idea.
Yeah, and we see hover on to Jhin here. Not an AD carry we see a lot of in the upper echelons of play right now. Has been out of favor as we see the Kai'Sa has been rising up in popularity, although I wouldn't say she's necessarily meta. She's more fringe right now. Lucian being hovered here from Karla being in Serbia, as you said, adding mobility to that AD carry pool potentially as we see if it's locked in or not, and it is locked in.
Hasn't been picked up. I like this Lucian pick a lot. I almost name dropped him in that last conversation where I was talking about needing some mobility. I think Lucian here is really good. He does well with Blitzcrank, has a lot of burst when Blitzcrank pulls somebody in, and that's really what you want with that support pickup, right? You want to pull somebody in and just kill them straight away. Unfortunately, for the side of Karla Serbia, the only real target they can blow up is going to be Dirty Up on the Kai'Sa. Because everyone else, like Pantoufle, maybe go for the ultimate. We have Kindred ult. We have Leona. You're never going to one-shot Leona. Set's going to just ult somebody out straight away. So I think we're going to need to see some kind of heat-seeking hooks here to catch up this Kai'Sa. I think both these AD carries, though, are a little bit fringe at the moment. Lucian received a little bit of a buff to the range in his Q. But it hasn't really been enough to push him back up into the upper echelons of play, like you said. Can do a lot of damage, though, and it does feel good for poking in lane if you're able to line those Qs up with the minion wave. So I think the bot lane will be very interesting. There's a lot of potential for either side to get kills. If Niaz is going to be landing some stuns, Zonx could find himself in a lot of trouble. Vian doesn't have a lot of peel potential on the Blitzcrank. He's not really a peely kind of champion, especially if that hook is down. So I think we could see some fireworks in the bot lane. Impulse in the mid lane, meanwhile, I think could have a little bit of trouble up against Lissandra. Lissandra does very well against Assassins, has that essentially point-and-click W stun or W root, I should say, when Impulse decides to distort himself in, and the point-and-click stun on the ultimate if he decides to want to go for the kill. So I think the Galactic eSports side is pretty safe so far. I think they have reasonably good matchups in all their lanes as well.
Yeah, I'm interested to see why they picked the Lissandra here instead of the Galio. I feel like Galio is a better matchup into the LeBlanc and helps their team a lot more with more of that kind of backline dive potential. Obviously, the point-and-click W from Lissandra is very nice, but at the same time, you're not really looking at any winning lanes when you pick up the Lissandra in that mid lane matchup, and you're really only looking to potentially win top lane here from a strong side perspective. And when you pick two weak lanes, your strong lane has to get ahead early, which you might be able to do with a Kindred, but at the same time, you're up against a Trundle in the jungle.
Yeah, I'm just not really seeing... I think their lanes are solid, but I do agree with you. I don't really see a hard win condition, right? Bot lane, maybe you could win if you land some nice stuns, but there's also the chance that if Kenobi's coming to gank, that he just gets pulled under the turret and killed. Even getting pulled out of his own ultimate could be a problem. So I think there's a lot of ways that the ganks can go wrong. Also, for this Kindred, very squishy, doesn't have a lot of time to play around with. If you're standing under a turret, you have to get that ultimate off. That you're very reliant on that. Mid lane's you're never going to win that lane as Lissandra. Even the Galio wouldn't be winning it. Might have a little bit more side lane pressure. I would expect him to go teleport on this Lissandra to try to impact the other lanes, because I think they really do need to play around mid lane and bot lane. Top lane and bot lane, I should say. Excuse me on that. Obviously, Lissandra is the mid laner. I think that they need to get rolling in the early game, or I think they're just going to kind of get pushed farther and farther behind as the game goes on.
Yeah, and as we continue looking at this draft, obviously, when you look in a LeBlanc draft, how are they looking to transition this early mid-game power from the LeBlanc and then Trundle towards the late game? Because really, I see Lucian, who doesn't really have the best scaling. Like, do they have to win by this 25-minute, or are they going straight for, what is their secondary win condition here, I should say?
To be completely honest with you, Finnick, don't see it. We will see how that is. We're going to have a little bit more time to discuss this. As it turns out, we are going to have to remake this draft. Some runes did not save for one of our junglers here. So we're going to have a little bit more time as we just remake this game. Runes weren't quite saved. Happens to everybody. But it does give us a little bit more time to break down this draft. So back to your question. I think your secondary win condition is really going to be this Volibear. outside of Impulse. I think Impulse is, really the way you're going to be snowballing the mid game just because he is the mid laner. But I think Glisha is probably the secondary way that you're going to win this game. I don't think Kiaxa is going to be able to do a whole lot just because there aren't a lot of tanks to steal stats from. Maybe you're going to steal Leona's stats, but she's a support. She doesn't build a ton of stats. A lot of that comes from her W. So I think they need to get rolling early game. I would expect that they will try to stack some dragons early on in the game. That has to be the way they're going to win this game. If you're not getting a Dragon Soul by 25, 26 minutes on the Karliavina side, I would worry for their late game damage, because the damage for Galactics is just going to start scaling up, right? Kenobi's going to get those marks. He's going to start doing more damage. Bentufle on the Lissandra are going to be doing a ton of damage. Everybody knows Kai'Sa late game, 4 or 5 items can just, blow a whole team up instantly with that upgraded Q, and the Rage Blade procs coming through, and Set, it doesn't really fall off. So I think that Karliavina is really the one with their backs up against the wall in this game, and they need to get ahead early. I think it has to be Impulse, and if that falls flat, I think they're kind of just out of options.
Yeah, and once again, upper echelons of play, these types of comps tend to work more often than not, especially in regions like the LPL. Obviously, C9's been doing more of these snowball type comps as well, but as you get lower down on the tier bracket, these comps become a little bit more difficult for players to execute upon, and that's where we look to a draft that I would call a TSM draft from the side of Galactic eSports. If this were in the upper echelons of play, where they don't really have any direct winning lanes, but they have a strong late game, and I see, okay, so they have to punish on Karliavina Serbia, or else they can't make it to that late game, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, you can get to late game if you just wait long enough, but that isn't really a great way to play the game, right? If you're just sitting there and waiting for 40 minutes, you're not going to ever get to 40 minutes. You need to actively fight for getting yourself to late game, which is a little weird, right? If you have a scaling comp, you can't just sit there and wait. You need to be trying to sustain the game long enough. Maybe steal a dragon, get a couple of dragons, get a herald, break down a turret, something that can get you into that late game. And so I think there's win conditions for either side, but it's just a little bit shaky. I worry about Impulse being able to do anything as this game gets past 20 or 25 minutes. I think there's a very high chance that he's going to get crowd controlled, get denied by the Lamb's Respite from Kenobi, get blown up instantly by Dirty Up or the Lissandra. There's a lot of ways that this LeBlanc can go wrong jumping in, even if she's very fed, right? LeBlanc doesn't get any tankier when she has a bunch of kills. That's not how carries work. So she will do more damage, right? But she's still going to get just one shot instantly if she gets stunned. She might have to ring cleanse this game. There's a lot of things that could go wrong for Impulse this game. And so I think even in the late game, it's still not really clear to me who's going to win, just because even though the comp for Galactics probably does more damage, there is the one-shot potential from Impulse if he's able to get the combo off, and Vian could just land a hook, Dirty Up gets one shot, and then you're going to win the fight 5 versus 4. So I think there's win conditions on both sides, and I'm very excited to see how they decide to play this game.
Yeah, and obviously, just a reminder, or if you're new to joining the stream here, this is a €1,500 prize pool for the winner of this tournament. So they are playing for stakes. Of course, week 3. You're thinking, less important. No, it's not less important. It's more that they are jockeying for position still, going into the playoffs, trying to get their share of that prize pool. Any final thoughts here as we continue waiting for the second spectator timer?
I can just keep expanding on that. We do have that €1,500 prize pool. Is, definitely a decent chunk of money that you do want to be winning. And, we're into the third game here, and every game does matter in a season that isn't, wildly long. You do need to be winning every game, right? Karliavina would be, working wonders for themselves, going up 3-0. We've seen in the LCS, Cloud9 went 9-0 in the first round robin, right? The first half of the season, undefeated, and boom, they already were qualified for playoffs, right? So, we're almost halfway through the season. Not almost, there's not that many games here. So if they can go 3-0, maybe pick up another win, 4-0, they're probably already going to guarantee themselves a playoff spot. And so each of these best of ones is just so important for Galactics as well, trying to get themselves a winning record. 2-1 feels so much better than 1-2, right? Because it's just, you have that winning record, you're 67% win rate, you're feeling good. One more win, you're 3-1, you're going to be fighting for those top spots. Whereas if you're 1-2, it's going to take a couple games just to get back to a winning record. It feels a lot worse. And so I think this game is quite important for their standing in the league for both of these teams as they look to, kind of move into that second half of the season and try to get themselves more amped up for those playoffs.
Yeah, second half of the season abound pretty much everywhere. Obviously looking towards the upper echelons of play once again. You mentioned C9, obviously, and NA has been doing quite a few interesting things towards bot lane and doing some interesting things with their team comps. They were handed a loss this week, though, by 100 Thieves, though. So, there is that.
That's true. they did lose finally. You know, it's not the end of the world for them. Obviously, they're already qualified for the playoffs. They are going to experiment around a little bit more. You know, for me, this league is here in Howling eSports. It's just not quite as long as the LCS. Obviously, it's not 18 games like in that league. And so while we might see a little bit of experimenting, you know, if a team is able to get to, you know, that 4-0, 5-0 mark, I think it'll be a little bit less just because the season is shorter. And so you don't have as much time to really be playing around. I think also in amateur, you know, teams have, you know, not that this is like super amateur, right? But it's a non-pro game. You do need to spend a little bit more time just kind of working on your comfort picks, working on, you know, what comps are working for your team. There's just not as much room for experimenting with a completely different play style in a season that only lasts a couple of months. Compared to a professional team where they, you know, scrim 8 hours a day, they have a lot of time to practice, a lot of time to theory craft. And so I think we'll see these teams kind of just playing it all the way out to the final buzzer of this league. Yeah, you mentioned Cloud9. I think that's just a little bit different because it is the professional versus not the professional scene. So yeah, that is definitely true as well. But I mean, it's a really important game for both these teams. If Kraljevina loses this game, they'll be tied in the standings, right? They'll both be 2-1, and so it's very important for both these teams. Kraljevina needs to win if they want to stay on top. But it looks like we are going to potentially throw it to a very short break here as we load into this game. We apologize once again for the technical difficulties on those runes not saving, but we'll be back in just a couple of minutes with game number 1 here. Actually, the only game between Kraljevina Serbia and Galactic eSports.
The bow breaks and I will fall. The ground shakes. The wind will shiver off. The world returns the same place without change. I will do the same and get out of your strain. Whoa. I can't forgive myself. Can't bottle up my memories. If only time will tell the truth and stop explaining the calm before the swell. I feel it in the melody. I will forget this hell and find my sweet serenity. Ignore the world at war. Just escape into a universe of senses. The world returns the same place without change. I will do the same and get out of your strain. I can't forgive myself. Can't bottle up my memories. If only time will tell the truth and stop explaining the calm before the swell. I feel it in the melody. I will forget this hell and find my sweet serenity. I can't forgive myself. Can't bottle up my memories. If only time will tell the truth and stop explaining the calm before the swell. I feel it in the melody. I will forget this hell and find my sweet serenity. 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 Find my sweet.
Welcome back, everybody. We apologize for those technical difficulties, but we are now live here in the loading screen for the first game between Kraljevina Serbia and Galactic eSports. The first of 2 games coming your way today on Howling eSports League. This is the first season. I am Jarl Carl Krieger, alongside my friend Philip Finnick Nickerson.
Yeah, and getting ready to go here for this first game of the third week. I'm excited to see if Karlovina Serbia can pull off this early game comp, or if Galactics is able to find mistakes to punish here. Obviously, if Karlovina executes perfectly, then I think they are definitely favored in this game, but Galactics has, of course, potential to make the game very difficult for Karlovina if it gets to that late game, as we are live in a couple seconds here with the game.
Yeah, it should just be a few seconds before we are on to Summoner's Rift. I do like the way you put it there, Fnatic Karlovina, kind of having the burden of execution in this game. If they're able to play perfectly, if they're able to get ahead, snowball, I think they will just kind of run over Galactics. But if they do stumble, this game can get a lot more interesting, because there is a lot of late game potential here for Galactics. You're going to have that Lissandra scaling up, just kind of randomly one-shotting people while keeping herself safe with the ultimate. Kai'Sa late game can do insane things if she plays properly. For me, it's Impulse, it's Vian that are the two wild cards for this. We have, that LeBlanc. If she gets ahead, if she's able to keep herself safe, she can just take over games. I'm sure that's happened to everybody in solo queue. And the Blitzcrank can just land some really sick hooks and kind of just win the game for his team, as we are now on to Summoner's Rift for the game.
Yeah, and on the blue side, it is Karlovina Serbia, Glisha in the top lane, Kiaksa in the jungle, Impulse in the mid lane, Zonks in the AD carry position, and Vian in support.
And on the red side, it's Galactics. We got Jakul in the top lane, Kenobi in the jungle, and Tufle in the mid lane. Dirty up the AD carry, and Nyaz the support. So these 10 players really going at it, as we see a little bit of shenanigans here, level 1.
Oh, looking for the hook over the wall. Can't find it. Just your average Blitzcrank non-committal invade, I would say, as the 5-point start did work for Galactics here. The ward, though, taken down, so 1 CS over to Kiaksa, 10 gold, 10 whole gold as he takes the back to grab the sweeper, then move on to what I assume would be his red buff for the Trundle.
Yeah, 10 gold in his pocket. Never underestimate that 10 extra gold. You never know when it keeps you from having to wait an extra 5 seconds. Could be very impactful. I am, of course, kidding about that. Not really a big deal, but it's always fun to talk about. And a little bit of vision denial, although both sides do have those deep wards on the Raptors of their opponents, which will make the jungle tracking just that much easier. Neither of these junglers are really typical early game gankers. It's not something like an Elise, like an Olaf. It's just going to kind of run you down at level 3 and be like, hello, I'm going to kill you now, and there's nothing you can do about it. But it is always nice to have that tracking on the enemy jungle. To make it a lot safer for the lanes. They're not really concerned about getting ganked. They can play a little bit more freely, and that can be really freeing for a lot of laners. Especially in this Volibear set matchup, if they really want to go toe-to-toe, you want to make sure that the jungler's not there. And that, in this game, they're probably going to know they're going to be topside, or at least the Trundle will be, of course. So Jakul going to probably have to play a little bit safer than he would otherwise.
Yeah, and on top of that, we can take a look at the runes here. Neither Conqueror on neither Glisha nor Kiaksa here, so Glisha opting more towards that burst-oriented Volibear pick, but interesting to see the PTA on Kiaksa instead of the Conqueror.
Yeah, we got level 2 in the bot lane, so might have to hold that thought. There's just a little bit of zoning going on against the bot lane of KS, but I don't mind the press the attack. I think with the Conqueror nerfs, it being 12 stacks instead of 10 stacks can be a little bit more annoying, especially as Trundle. He doesn't really spam spells that quickly to proc, and the press the attack is really a more dueling summon, Keystone, I should say. Has a little bit more burst potential, and so I don't mind it, especially if they're trying to snowball, right? They don't really want to be in these long extended team fights. They want to just be blowing people up, and I think that's really what they're going to be going for, and so for that reason, I don't mind the press of the attack on both these champions, as they are looking to just kind of get advantages in their own respective 1v1s, as Kenobi's looking toward the mid lane.
Yeah, Impulse, got to be very careful here, is pushed up, has a bit of a wave, so Kenobi's got to be careful as well. Here comes the Frozen Path, right into the root. Here goes Impulse over the wall with the distortion. Should be able to stay alive for the time being, but no summoners blown in the mid lane, but that will be the recall from Impulse, and should be able to punish. Meanwhile, in the bot lane, Dirty out, forced to flash away.
Yeah, definitely not what you want in a lane that's against the Blitzcrank. Blowing that flash early can be very, very important. Also, very well played by Impulse in the mid lane to get away without having to blow summoners. Very calm, cool, and collected there, knowing he didn't need to use the flash, just needed to use the distortion to get himself away, and that's the ignite down for the Lissandra here. Is a little bit of fighting over the Scuttle Crab, but it's going to be the Volibear forced away, but Kijax is actually walking up to this area.
Yeah, able to get the mark, though, onto Kenobi, so that always feels very nice for the Kindred. Of course, 4 marks is the mark, as it were, for Kindred when she becomes really the powerhouse that she can be in the early game. So getting the early Scuttle Crab always feels nice. As we continue in this laning phase, no real advantages have opened up across the map. Slight CS leads in the bot and mid lanes, respectively. But at the moment, just waiting for some action to happen from these junglers. As we see an engage from the Leona on the bot lane. Should be disengaged pretty fine, though, by the Blitzcrank and Lucian.
Yeah, nice knock up there. It definitely makes sense to be trying to go for these advantages, you know, when Blitzcrank especially doesn't have his hook. I don't think they're going to be finding a whole lot of kills down in this bot lane. There's cleanse on Lucian. He is pretty mobile. Every summoner up, and no flash for the Kai'Sa still. So not a lot of kill threat here for the GX bot lane, but, you know, they're trying their best. They're asking questions, and that's what you want to do. Kenobi now looking to go for another mark, and I think he's going to get it here, Finnick. There's just nobody there to contest him.
Yeah, and 2 marks on Kindred. I mean, at that 5-minute mark, if she's got 2 marks, it's very, very likely that she gets that 4x10 going into that second Dragon of the game. Kenobi, meanwhile, ganking onto Jakul, who is under tower. Flash back, gets caught by the Haymaker as the turret takes down Kenobi, but it's an execute as Jakul now using the minions to tag up, going back in with the punch. Facebreaker picks up the kill, and Jakul gets first blood.
Kiaxa walking forward, trying to do a little bit to come up there. Here's that replay, though. Glitch under the tower, doing his best. A nice flash, just a little bit late to get away from the Haymaker damage. Execute also pretty unfortunate for him. That's never what you really want to see, right? And then didn't have the cooldowns back available to pick up the trade kill onto Jakul, who did keep himself safe with that Triumph. So a nice rune to keep himself a little bit healthier, and that is first blood going over for GX. A nice advantage. They do lose the Kindred, but she'd still got her mark up in the top side. So in the end, not that bad. You know, only XP went over to the Volibear for that kill. As the Dragon now going to be started up by this Kindred, just kind of out of powerhouse so far this game, trying to farm up, getting those marks, and just hasn't really been challenged by Kiaxa so far.
Yeah, I think this is a kind of a bit of an early game misplay from Kiaxa, not punishing the Kindred's weaker early game here. She really needs to farm upright. So in doing so, as we see, that gives away the first Dragon. That will be a Mountain Drake, as the next one will be the Ocean, so either an Infernal or Cloud Soul. And the hard shove just doesn't come out from Karlovina Serbia's bot lane here to punish that take, and so really this is just an unpunished, uncontested Dragon from the side of Galactic eSports.
Yeah, the shove, you know, they did shove in the bot lane, but it just wasn't enough fast enough. They weren't really able to deny a whole lot of CS. Dirty Up going to catch up a little bit, down about a wave still, but you definitely will trade a couple of farm for that first Dragon, especially against the team that wants to snowball the early game, right? KS is so far not doing so well at their early game objective. They're not really snowballing. They've in fact lost a kill on the top side, you know, in that secondary win condition that we mentioned earlier. And so far I think this game is going very well for Galactics. They have a very pleasant position. You know, they've successfully weathered the early game Blitzstorm. Nobody got pulled at level 2. There was no cheese going on. Nice gank in the top lane. Your Kindred's scaling up as well. So all things considered, doing very well for GX so far, as ultimates are now pretty much online for everybody except the bot laners, who are still level 5. So I think Lissandra is going to be perfectly safe in the mid lane. Kindred has her ultimate to kind of come save anybody that might need it. And GX just in a very nice place right now, up 1,000 gold as well.
Yeah, obviously very good spot for them, especially considering Karlovina Serbia wants to be up going into the later stages of the laning phase. We see the engage happen towards the mid lane, but the ult already came out from the Kindred. Tassel gets popped on impulse. He's ignited up, though, as the Kindred goes up and picks up the kill. Kiaxa now trying to get something onto Pantoufle, but the ultimate already came out from the Kindred. 2 more down, and Pantoufle picks up the kill. It's 2 for 0 in the mid lane.
Really nice coordination there by the GX side, just looking like they're in complete control of this. Glisha just still standing up in the top lane. A nice roam by Jakul as well. Good use of the cooldowns. Kenobi keeping everybody safe and just fighting the bot lane.
Man gets a nice pull, though, into the ultimate flashback, but he's ignited up. And here comes Kenobi looking for a trade. Zonks gets killed in the ass as Kenobi tries to find more onto Bay and can't get the damage down, as Zonks is tanking up for his support. It will be a 1 for 0 in the bot lane. Kill going over to Zonks does feel nice, though.
Yeah, did use the flash for that kill. You do need to fight back if you are the Kingdom Serbia side here, and they are doing so. Still does not make up for what happened in the mid lane. I want to go back to that very briefly, as we will actually see the replay here. So Impulse just kind of trading in the mid lane, goes in for a trade, and then he does get hit by that Frozen Tomb, tries to get himself away, uses the flash, matched by Pantoufle. Very well done to keep himself in range. Kenobi, knowing he could commit to the kill, his mid laner was going to be safe, and Kyaxa just doesn't have the damage, doesn't have his ultimate available. The showstopper to move him out of the Lam's Respite as well. Great coordination, great job knowing he was there, and an overall just wonderful play by GX. You might see some more action around the Herald.
It's a 3v2. Jakul looking for a bit of an engage as the dunk comes in from the Volibear. Haymaker tanks up a lot of the damage as Kenobi makes his way over. Jakul still goes down. Neoth stays alive for the time being. It will be traded back as Jurya makes his way into the top lane. It's a double kill for the LeBlanc, and it's a 3-for-2 turnaround for Galactic eSports as they move on to the Rift Herald.
That fight was almost a disaster there for GX, but they were able to get their teammates to arrive in time. Dirty Up showed up just in the nick of time to save his team. They started out with less members, but they had more members on the way. They did lose a couple of kills. Impulse getting a double kill is not what they wanted to see, but they are able to secure the objective. They're able to secure a couple of more kills, and so in the end, it barely works out for Galactic eSports, keeping up the tempo in this game. They're up more than they're up more than 2,000 gold, I should say, doing really well so far. They have this Herald as well, maybe going to push down the mid lane turret with that. They've already taken 2 plates, so that will have a lot of impact if they're able to do that. A little skirmishing in the mid lane. I think Lysandra is going to
double root down. I don't know if she has Glacial Path up. Neos, though, we're looking for a little bit of the engage. Here comes the Glacial Path into the W. Ooh. Frozen Tomb, and Neos, scumbag support, gives away the solo kill as Kenobi.
He starts a little bit of damage. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you there. Finnick on that one, but there's the Herald that I was talking about earlier. One more plate went down. This will kill the turret. That's going to be first turret going over in favor of Galactics. I do believe there it goes. Down first tower in their favor. Now up, more than 3,000 gold, 3,500 so far. Like you said, a little bit unfortunate the kill got stolen, but it works out for them in the end. They were able to kill up Impulse, which is really their goal this game, is to kill this LeBlanc. There's a little bit of fighting at the top, and they're just kind of trading each other out. It is top lane. They do a lot of trading and not a lot of dying. It's kind of the name of the game up there, as the push has actually been taken by GX down in the bot lane. Mana Immune completed for Dirty Up. It's still down almost 25 CS. That is going to be maybe a little bit of a problem later on in the game. But for now, she's just trying to get her pickaxe, trying to get that upgraded Q before they do a whole lot more fighting, because that is one of her main power spikes. We have a lot of members around this dragon. The second dragon of the game, it is that Ocean Dragon. It's now alive as we might start a little bit of a dragon dance, but nobody seems terribly interested in this. They're kind of backing away. This could be a hook, though, over the wall.
Able to find on Neos, but that's not the target that you want to get. He is tanking, gonna pop the W, but the killer's already there. Calling comes out, Neos flashes away, but Zonk still picks up the kill. Move on to the dragon.
Yeah, not really what they were hoping for. You have to think there. It was the tankiest member, but didn't have flash, so no way to really get themselves out. They do start up the dragon. I'm not entirely sure this is going to work out for them. Yeah, they do have to kind of back away. GX now moving on toward it. They're actually down a member, but they do have tempo on this dragon. A pretty interesting turn of events here. They have more members here faster.
Kyaxa, he's able to get the steal. No, he's not, and that is going to be the kill going over to Dirt. Yep, as the showstopper comes out, going to be doing a lot of damage here as Gleisha tries to find the ultimate, but the Lamb's Respite is already down in time to save Kenobi. And here comes the Solar Flare into the Zenith Blade. Down goes Vayne as Durup goes on a killing spree. 3-4-0 in the Dragon Pit, and Galactics has been very good this early game.
Yeah, absolutely. They needed, to fight for getting themselves to that late game scaling. They might not even need late game scaling, as we might have to hold that thought. Impulse getting jumped on. There's a Frozen Tomb.
Yeah, that's passive barely saving Impulse there. Whew.
Yeah, he's going to be fine, though. He walks away. Doesn't even need to use the flash. He's saying, hey, I knew you would miss that cue over the wall. But anyway, back to the dragon. Not necessarily a bad fight for Chaos to take, right? They were up a member. Neos had to come back from base, but Kyaxa, we're going to see this, has to splash over the wall and kind of just dies instantly going for the steal, and that kind of starts this fight off. He goes in, doesn't get the steal. Now he's 1 versus 3, right? He gets taken down almost straight away. The teleport comes in. Dirty Up's able to get away with the Killer Instinct, a nice showstopper in as well, and so they're really grouped up, GXs. They have a great Lamb's Respite. They can't really take damage, and they're split. Impulse is not with his team. The KS side looked very uncoordinated in this fight, and so I think it just led to Galactics they're in a group, they're in a ball, taking a lot of 2 versus 5s, whereas KS was taking a lot of 1 versus 5s, 2 versus 5s, like I just said, the reverse of that. and they just weren't really coordinated as a team. Their ultimates weren't working together. They weren't really playing around each other, and a lot more individual plays come through. And so when you have that kind of solo queue-esque play versus a team play, Galactics is going to come out on top, and they get the Dragon as well. So really in command of this game. The Cloud Soul will come out for this game, the next Dragon up in 3.5 minutes. But I think Chaos really just needs to regroup and start playing around themselves, playing around each other, especially around this Lucian, who is their power point at the moment.
Yeah, 2-0 on the Lucian still. Has a bit of a CS lead on the Kaisa. Would like to point out, though, in the itemization, Glisha opting for the AP build, as I don't have time to say that hook into the blind, but it's not going to be enough as the ult already comes up for Thunder Soul Fire on to the enemy ADC. He goes down, Shinobi, looking for more damage down onto Impulse. He's into the fight. Down goes the Lissandra, but down goes Blitz as well. Kioxa trying to find his way to save the tower, but I don't think it'll be enough. 3 for 2 in favor of Galactic Esports.
What a wild play there, Finnick. We saw, it was going to be a dive, but then the dive was sniffed out by Vian, went for the hook, but it turned out he was hooking them into his own doom. At the end of that one, not what they were hoping for on the tower dive. Galactics is basically saying, hey, thanks for moving me in. I don't even need to walk now. Just going straight away onto that one. A very nice play by them. They're just stronger at this point. A lot of really good tower juggling as well. Nias popping himself the stopwatch after taking up for so long. Pantufle unfortunately went down to the tower. He was the one that next had the aggro, but his passive picked up the kill on Vian as well. So in the end, it worked out. Here this play is one more time. So he pulls in the Lissandra. Not always the greatest of plans. Teleport comes in to try to buy a little bit of time, but a Solar Flare, a nice stun, is buying a lot of time. There's the Zanya from Nias as well to drop the tower aggro. Pantufle, unfortunately, going to take some damage, but Impulse goes down to the Lissandra passive at the end of that. We also saw a 1v1 in the top lane. That was not really on screen. I think that was in the top lane. As we saw Glisha pick up a solo kill onto Jakul as well. So a little bit traded back for them, but overall still a huge advantage for GX. They're up about 5,000 gold.
Interestingly, as I was pointing out before the fight, this is the AP build from Glisha, as he does complete the Hextech Gunblade. Not something I would expect seeing where the lane state was earlier, but obviously able to get that solo kill onto Jakul does feel very nice. As we continue in through this mid-game, Pantufle looks to be the one to match Glisha, as Jakul seems to be matching Impulse in the 1-3-1. First Herald, though, being taken.
Yeah, it's been started up. We're seeing a little bit of a Herald dance. Jakul does have teleport. Impulse does not. So this could be a 5v4 if we see a fight. The hook. Well, not
Hook misses, but here comes the calling into the kill directly onto the Trundle. Now, Killer Instinct makes sure he's able to pick up the kill onto the enemy AD carry. And once again, Galactics feeling very good going into this mid-game.
Yeah, picking up the Herald, another couple of kills. They're just in complete control of this map. This is not, I think, what most people would have expected going into this game. Probably even Serbia looked so strong in the last couple of weeks, but now are just being taken to task by Galactics Esports here. Impulse could be in trouble as well. He's getting run down. This might take a miracle for him to get away.
Yeah, and, I mean, he is LeBlanc, able to get one distortion into the root. Here comes the Zenith Blade, though, stunned under tower into the Solar Flare. Impulse, gonna pop the passive as Kenobi goes under tower. Meanwhile, Pantufle on the other side of the map gets a solo kill on the Glisha, and it's a 2-for-0 across the map as the dragon spawns.
Kraljevina, Serbia just bleeding out at this point, losing kills over and over. Here's the fight around the Herald one more time. Zonk's trying to do the calling, just doesn't do that much damage. Kioxa gets taken down straight away, just not that tanky. A nice showstopper as well by Jakul to secure the kill on the AD carry. Killer Instinct as well, just to make sure they picked up that kill. Not afraid to use resources to pick up, just individual kills. And I think that is to be respected. You want to make sure you're taking everything that you can. As you mentioned, that dragon is now up. Definitely for GX to lose. They're 8,000 gold in the lead right now. Finnick looking to go for their third dragon of the game. They're just essentially doing exactly what we wanted Kraljevina to do, except they're the team that is scaling. We might see a hook in the mid lane. Has to be flashed by Kaisa, but she's going to be okay from that one. And I think they still should have position on this dragon.
Yeah, in fact they do. Jakul playing zone control right now as Kenobi and Pantufle start up the dragon. Dirtchia making his way over as well. And that will be Soul Point now on the next dragon for Galactics.
Pretty much uncontested from that one. Kioxa kind of walked behind it and said, hey, I wish I could take this, but I can't. As we're now on a killing spree, Pantufle has just one-shot Impulse. We saw that in the side, in a little picture-in-picture, and he does a lot of damage. At this point, he has his Spurta belt completed, has Luden's Echo completed. That's just the ultimate WQ, and there's no more LeBlanc on the Rift. The main power point for Chaos just taken out straight away in the bot lane by one combo from this Lysandra. They are in complete control. A lot of pressure will be drawn by that soul point. They can move toward the Baron. They can try to trade on that soul for the Baron if they do decide to go that route. Basically, the world is their oyster so far for Galactic eSports. They're in complete control. Bot lane going to go down. The Herald might even get another charge with the inhibitor turret. Seems actually pretty unlikely at this point, but they are up 4 turrets to 0, just kind of running over probably even Serbia.
Yeah, and Culling just used to clear the waves. You don't like seeing that if you're the Lucian. But here comes the LeBlanc, flashing in, gets a 2-man root. Down goes the Lucian as Vian gets saved by the Limbs of Spite, but he will end up going down regardless. The double kill already comes after the Kai'Sa. I'm not even sure who did all that damage, as that's a triple kill for Dirtjup. 5 for 1 in the mid lane. Tower goes down, and Galactic's eSports are going to get an inhib off this.
Yeah, what a great dive they're coming through. A lot of that was the Lysandra passive damage off of the first kill. They were all grouped up. Kraljevina just getting hit by a massive amount of Lysandra passive damage, as well as the Acacian range from Dirty Up. No minions in the area means you're getting hit by every single one of those up every couple of seconds. 8-0 now on the Kai'Sa. Here is this fight. Here's the dive coming through. Nyas is so tanky. He can tank up this turret for so long. Then he has the Lamb's Respite to keep himself alive. Zonx is just one shot at the start of this fight, and that is probably the strongest member just taken out immediately. We're going to see the Lysandra passive come through. Solar Flare, a nice stun. Huge swaths of damage coming down. Impulse does what he can on the backside, but he's not able to get onto the Kai'Sa. Kenobi keeping himself alive as well. Pantufle was in the Zanya, and all the carries just keeping themselves safe through that fight. A great dive of the turret, knowing how long they could tank that up, knowing that they had the AoE damage they needed, and the Lamb's Respite to keep himself alive.
Yeah, just really well played from Galactic eSports as they start posturing towards this Baron, I should say. 2 minutes, 40 seconds until the soul is taken, so they can just go ahead and grab this Baron if they want to grab it. And it looks like they're posturing about it. Oh, yeah, they're just going to start it.
Yeah, it should be reasonably free for them. There's just no way to contest this, essentially, if you're KS. I mean, you can go for a fight, but you're probably not going to win it. You're down 12,000 gold. Nyas is going in.
Here comes the engage, and the Kai'Sa ultimate already going to be topped here. As Volibear tries to go to the backline, Yacht still goes down. Going to try to get a couple more kills down and shut down Lance. Onto the Kindred, the ultimate's already there. Onto Zonx. And Kiaksa trying to run his way out of the fight. Will end up trying to find a way on the blast gun, but Pantufle already gets him with the double kill on the passive. Now Impulse on his own, gonna pop the passive himself. That's too little too late. It looks like Galactic eSports are just gonna go for the end here.
Yeah, they are moving down. I don't think there's anything they can do. They didn't even have Lamb's Respite. It looked a little bit shaky at the start of the fight, but they were still able to win that situation around the Baron. They're going for the end, Finnick.
Yeah, and that's gonna be it. Galactic eSports improving to 2-1. The backtimers are up though. Coke's not gonna hit, and there is the root, the kill, and the game going over to Galactic eSports. They improved to 2-1, while Karlovenia Serbia ends up going down to 2-1. First loss of the season for them.
Yeah, definitely not what anybody was expecting going into this game, but a lot of props have to go over to Galactic eSports. They played a very clean game, able to get kills. You know, they started at minute 3, and they just never took their foot off the gas pedal. They never took a bad fight. They never really overreached, right? And so we're going to see some clips probably, I think, coming through from this game, and just a great job overall by this team. They never took the foot off the gas pedal. They never gave Kraljevina Serbia a chance to get back into the game. Sure, a couple of kills went over in favor of Impulse on the LeBlanc, but it just wasn't enough. There's no way he was ever going to go in. He was getting CC'd across the board. A really good understanding of their team comp. They were diving towers very well. They knew they had the Lamb's Respite to keep himself alive. They knew they had Stopwatch to go the turret aggro, the ultimate coming through from Lysandra as well. A great use of their team comp. It looked very coordinated is really the word I would put with the Galactic's team comp this game, and just the team in general. They looked like they really were put together. They practiced this. They came with a game plan, and they executed on it.
Yeah, and our MVP for the game will be Kenobi on the Kindred, 5, 2, and 18. We're going to have him in here in just a minute for an interview, but man, that was some very clean Kindred play throughout the game, starting in that early game, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Throughout the game as well, but yeah, the early game, the dive, he was able to get a couple of marks, you know, and that was really what I think snowballed this game is he wasn't put behind early, which is what Kingdom Serbia really needed to do in this game. We talked about it in Champ Select. We kind of hammered it home, right? So they needed to snowball early. They didn't really snowball early, and it just wasn't what they needed to do. It looks like we are going to take a little bit of a pause for a couple of minutes here before we come back with that interview with Kenobi. So we'll be back in just a couple of minutes to interview the winner of that game.
Then, going into the second dragon of the game. Kenobi, meanwhile, ganking on the Jakul, who is under tower. Flashback, gets caught by the haymaker as the turret takes down Kenobi, but it's an execute as Jakul now using the minions to tag up, going back in with the punch face breaker. Picks up the kill during probably being Serbia wants to be up, going into
overall, I think fine.
Of the lane phase. You see the engage happen towards the mid lane, but the ult already came out from the Kindred. Castle gets popped on impulse. He's ignited up though as the Kindred goes up and takes up.
Throw it back right now, now. Then in a little while I'll see you start to smile. You thought you forgot that you know how. Baby, I can help it, nobody else can put me up like you got me up in flames. From our very first kiss to our very last wish, you'll be running through my veins. And I never want another. Come back to me, my lover. Take a chance and touch the stars. Start to dance to the beat of your heart. Take a chance, you've come this far. Lift up your hands and touch the stars. The stars, the stars, the stars, the stars, the stars, the stars, and touch the
Welcome back, everybody, to our post-game discussion after that game between Kraljevina Serbia and Galactics eSports, in which Galactics kind of just ran Kingdom Serbia off the map. I think it has to be said from that game. I do want to apologize for the technical difficulties that we had playing those best moments right before we went to this break. It was a little bit choppy on the audio, I'm told, so do apologize for that. I do want to welcome into our little bit of an interview we have here Kenobi, our star on the Kindred from last game. Welcome, sir. How do you feel?
Hi. Pretty great. Pretty great.
Yeah, I mean, you did win the game, so that usually makes you feel great, I would assume. We just have a couple of questions for you here. First off, like, how did you kind of prepare for this game versus the undefeated team? Kingdom Serbia, right, they were 2-0, looked really dominant last week. Just kind of business as usual for you guys? Were you preparing extra hard just to go up against this kind of like rising star in the league? What were your thoughts going into this game?
Well, business as usual. As you said, we didn't prepare any more, but that doesn't mean we prepared little. We prepare a lot for each match, and we had the draft ready beforehand, and we didn't approach the match as if it was any different from any other team in the league.
All right, and so about that Kindred pick, not something that we see very commonly in the meta. How do you feel about Kindred and her place in the meta, and how did you feel about your Kindred that particular game?
Well, as far as the meta goes, Kindred is just like such a really good pick against low mobility melee junglers. It's also a really good pick into Graves. So right now she's in they're in a fine spot, and with the first pick Trundle, it's really easy to just have a free have a lot more pressure than them from the get-go.
Yeah, absolutely. Very briefly, one more question for you here, sir. More generally about your team. You guys looked really coordinated in that game, at least from our perspective. There were a lot of tower dives, and you were juggling aggro very effectively. You were using your ultimate on Kindred, again, specifically, to really make those tower dives work out. How do you feel like your team cohesion is here going into this kind of third game, a little bit farther into the season? Do you guys feel like you're really clicking as a team? What are your thoughts just on your team synergy at this point in the season?
Well, it's still shaky. You've got to you had the chance to see the good side of it when we were warmed up and the dives went off properly. If we don't count my execute early top lane, the dives went properly, but that's we still have so much room to grow there, and we're going to be working extra hard to make it even cleaner.
That's definitely the attitude we like to hear here, always trying to improve. Well, that is what we like to see. Thank you very much for the interview, Kenobi. Congratulations again on the win. Yeah, absolutely. For us, we're going to throw it to another 3-minute break as we get ready for the second game of the day. Don't go away. We'll be back in just a few.
Take me in slow, breathe me in and let me go. Filling the lungs inside you, and the blackened eyes make my way into your mind. Just to know what you knew. Restless every time we start locking eyes. Lost control. It's paradise with honesty, but I'm in the dead of the night. Let the darkness take control. Let the darkness take control. Darkness take control. May the darkness take control. Take me in slow, breathe me in and let me go. Sink to your heart to find you. Open up your eyes till you're blinded by the lies, so you can see what you do. Restless every time we are in the dead of the night. Teardrops on the floor, the pain is over. Feel the darkness take control.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Howling eSports League Season 1. This is the third set of games, and we are in game number 2 of the day here between Laganma and Lethal Rage. Should be a good one. Lethal Rage 2-0 so far. So the other undefeated team that we have in the league. Looking forward to this game. I am Jarl Carl Krieger alongside Philip Finnick Nickerson.
Yeah, and I'm excited as well. Another 1-1 versus 2-0 matchup. Looking at the lane matchup, Sojourn in top lane versus Anticide is back. Croatian Jungler versus Kanavi, Karsa KPD. Christian X versus Suzuku. Jupai versus Fair, and Fiko versus EQWQR.
Yeah, maybe trying to give us a little bit of a code there on the support's name. We know what combo he's going to be going for, at least what he wants to be doing in the bot lane. Should be a pretty exciting game. Both of these teams in the upper echelon, as we've been, that's kind of the word of the day here, as we've been saying, of this league. Lethal Rage looked very good so far, 2-0. Haven't had a chance to cast them yet, so I'm excited to do so. Laganma, I did happen to cast last week, if you were around for that. Croatian Jungle doing very well for them. A lot of jungle stars, at least we've seen so far. Really a lot of jungle carrying going on as well, is a very strong role. Obviously, Graves could be a nice pick for them this week as well. Has been pretty strong in the meta in solo queue. A reasonably safe pick, can be tanky, can do a lot of damage. I think Graves is an interesting pick. The Olaf, of course, Lee Sin if you want to go more early game. Elise should have a little bit lower priority in this game than we saw in the last game. Hasn't been, the mainstays for either of these junglers, so that is good to look for in this game. Rek'Sai, though, they both play. Graves, they both play. Could be picked up in this game, so we'll see how the jungle matchup does unfold.
Yeah, there's a potential Karthus pickup as well from Kanavi Karsa KPD. Has not been favoring that one recently, but does have quite a few games on it and can be good, especially with the recent round of buffs to him. His jungle clear has become quite a bit better, starting to come back online in very specific situations. But kind of on top of that, speaking of meta, the mid lane situation here, Christian plays basically nothing but Azir and Cassio recently, where the side of Suzuku has been playing kind of a hodgepodge of different things mid lane.
Yeah, you always want to have a diverse champion pool, especially in the mid lane. So we'll see what they decide to go with, especially when people are playing kind of everything in solo queue. It can be a little bit weird to try to decide what they're going to be going for in those competitive games. But I think the Azir on the side of Christian is a reasonably safe bet that we'll see that probably picked or banned in this game. One of his best champs has been spamming it, like you just said. Has a lot of games on Salas as well, so maybe we'll see that come out for them as we go into this game. So there's a lot of ways that this could go for the mid laners. I think it's kind of obvious where their priorities lie, at least in solo queue. But Christian has a lot of games. He's played over 600 games in solo queue this year. So he has 50 plus games on 5 champions. So it's not like he's a one trick or any sort or anything of that sort. With the Azir, has been playing it a lot recently, so that could be some kind of a tell. But I would expect it to be picked or banned. It's just really strong. In the meta right now. We are 20 seconds away from Champions Select. Very excited to get into this one. It is the game here between Laganma and Lethal Rage. Definitely a premier matchup here in the league, as we have about 10 seconds left before we get into the Champions Select. I have no final parting words for you, so we will see you on the other side of this intro with Champions Select between Lethal Rage and Laganma. I'll bring it back briefly, I think. I'll just say something, I'll go back and then go. Welcome to the Champions Select. We are now here, Laganma on the blue side, Lethal Rage on the red side. We're getting into those first set of bans.
Yeah, and I'll be interested to see what these teams decide to ban away here as we get ready to go. I almost expect Laganma to go ahead and ban away the Graves, as well as that Karthus. Karthus, of course, getting banned away first and foremost here, so obviously not wanting to play against power farmers at the moment. Ezreal being banned away by the side of Lethal Rage.
That is what we saw last game as well. A lot of jungle and AD carry bans, which I think makes sense. I think those are the two positions that have kind of the most really OP power picks at the moment right now, and that's kind of where you often focus the bans if you're not going for more of just a comfort situation. Is jungle, there's top tier picks. Karthus is a comfort pick, but Graves is really strong. The Trundle can be strong in certain situations, and bot lane is kind of Ezreal, Aphelios, Varus is really strong, but there's not really a giant pool. Like you sometimes see with mid lane. Mid lane you can play Azir, you can play Corki, you can play Syndra, you can play Orianna. There's all these mages, you can play Assassins, maybe Akali. And so it's really hard to ban people out on mid lane, especially if they have such a deep pool. So I think the bot lane and jungle bans do make a lot of sense. There's enough tanks in the top lane that you can kind of always find a favorable matchup as well, so I'm not surprised to see that kind of ignored. And like we mentioned, there is that Azir ban out. Has been a huge pick for Christian.
Yeah, and on top of that, Lulu first pick here, so either going to be a Kog'Maw or an Aphelios for the Kog'Maw bot side. I'll be interested. It's an Ashe, not an Aphelios? With
Apparently
Lulu? Okay.
Finnick is speechless at this point, but it's not awful. It can do a lot of damage to the auto attacks if she can get him through. It is susceptible to a little bit more of an engage bot lane if they have like a Nautilus to just grab onto the Ashe. Sivir's been locked in. We have Sivir Karma, so not going to see quite as much engage, although a lot of run speed so far. Move speed, I should say. Likely coming through for this game. Karma ult, Sivir ult. If you put those on to a Volibear, he can be quite scary.
Yeah, and on top of that, right, the Trundle immediately picked up in response to that Volibear pick. Sees a tank, wants to steal tank stats. Of course, could be the AP Volibear build like we saw last game. Really depends on how well that does in lane. It could be, of course, Karma top or mid and Volibear support or jungle. So let's wait and see where these potential flex picks go before we really say where things might be. Corki and Cassiopeia being banned away by Lethal Rage towards mid lane. Kassadin being banned away by Kog'Maw. We'll expect another mid lane ban. Probably maybe an Orianna ban just to get that one out of the way here. Will actually be the TF ban though.
Makes some sense. TF can be quite strong. Has a lot of impact on the side lanes as well, so just taking that away. A lot of mid laners banned out. That is 6, arguably 7 mid laners if we want to pretend that Karthus is the mid laner. These days, that's a lot of mid lane bans. It's going to be forcing these summoners to go farther down into their champion pool. The Orianna has been hovered. A decent ball delivery with the Volibear ultimate, depending regardless, actually, I should say, of where that champion ends up being placed.
That
can do a lot of
damage. That's Trundle support
Lulu
mid. That's Trundle support Lulu mid.
That sounds relatively scary to me. I like the Zac pick up against the Orianna. I like Zac a lot against immobile mids. It's really hard for somebody that does not have a dash in kit to get away from Zac. The range is just a little bit too big on the Elastic Slingshot. Almost always going to go for the knock-up, and you can find yourself in the Death Chamber in a very rapid fashion. So we'll have to watch out for that, as there's just a lot of interesting picks coming through. The Kale's being hovered as well. Could be an interesting situation. It's been locked in. We got a Kale.
Yeah, Trundle top. Not something we see a lot of at all, although Croatian... Yeah. I was about to say, Croatian jungler was on... He's still on the Trundle. Wait, is that Zac top?
Sounds pretty spicy to me. It does kind of nullify everything I just said about Orianna, but I think it can do well against Kale, right? I mean, you can just jump in on her. She has no dash. Like I said, and Zac does a lot of damage, as you see every time he's played in the jungle. He just kind of like one-shots people. I think this is a very interesting pick. Very spicy by Kog'Maw.
Extremely spicy. Obviously, when you pick a Zac and you already have Trundle Lulu, you're thinking, okay, these are going to be flex picked, right? But with the Akali in the mid lane up against the Orianna is a favorable matchup, so definitely agree with that pick. That said, this Kale in the top lane was picked, I think, assuming it was Trundle top and not Zac top, and this changes the dynamic of that top lane matchup quite a bit. So let's talk about that top lane matchup, because I think it's very interesting.
I think this is a lane in which Sojin needs to start punishing and decide his deck on the Kale, because if you're not punishing the Kale, everybody knows what happens to Kale when she gets to level 16 and has 4 items and she's on curve. She will just shred through your team. Are there ways she can get killed in this game? Kind of. If Christian gets fed, he can probably go for the one-shot, but she still has her ult. And so a one damage source team does not do well against a team with Kale, because she has that ultimate to keep herself safe. And so I think Sojin needs to be getting ahead, needs to be putting her behind, because if this Kale is left unchecked, I think it could spell a lot of problems for the side of Kog'Maw. On the other hand, I think it will be reasonably easy to punish. I think Kanavi Karsta KPD is going to need to be spending some time at the top lane. Sojin just jumping in. If he misses his slingshot, maybe there's potential to trade back, but especially before level 6, Kale is super, super weak. And so I think it's really that first couple of minutes, 5, 6, 7 minutes, that need to be going in favor of Laganma in the top lane. I think you have two choices if you're Lethal Rage. You either need to try to defend this Kale and keep her alive, or kind of just ignore her, let a lot of resources be put on her, and just try to get the bot side snowballing. Maybe try to get a couple of kills bot lane, maybe try to kill this Akali, and more importantly, snowball some dragons. Probably get 2 dragons before there's been too much damage done to Kale in the first 10 or so minutes. So I think there's a couple of strategies that they could go for inside of Lethal Rage. I think they just need to keep this Kale from getting completely smashed, though, or she's just not going to be a champion as we go later on into the game.
Yeah, but at the same time, Laganma does have a very strong mid lane matchup with the Akali. Should be able to get constant wave priority onto the Orianna, being able to make the roams with the Trundle and affect those side lanes. Try to shut down the Kale, but at the same time, you're looking at a double scaling threat from Lethal Rage with the Sivir in the bot lane. Going to do more late game damage than the Ashe, despite the fact that there is a Lulu to kind of boost that. I'm surprised to see that this was the Ashe pickup instead of the Aphelios with the Lulu. I feel like Aphelios and Kog'Maw are definitely better pairs, especially when you have this double front line from Laganma.
Maybe just feeling like the Aphelios got a little bit too hit with the nerfs in the last patch. Not quite sure. I think the Ashe has a little bit better pick than the Aphelios does. Maybe we'll force Cleanse out of Suzaku in the mid lane. I don't think the bot laners will take Cleanse. The spell shield is up for fair, so I think that should be enough. But we might see some Cleanses having to be forced out. A little bit better pick from Ashe. Lower damage, obviously. You're not going to be just one-shotting the entire team like Aphelios can do. I don't hate the pick here. I don't love Ashe in general. I think it works okay here where you're trying to get picks. You have Sojin to jump in. Christian can try to one-shot people as well. So I think they are going to need some nice coordination with this Ashe ult, so the pick just doesn't make any sense to my mind.
Yeah, and it's really a game of coordination once again. We see another comp that needs to win early, have a bit more snowball potential, this time from Laganma on the blue side, while Lethal Rage has the scaling comp with the Kale, with the Sivir. Volibear, I'm going to suspect, is going to go either AD or tank. Tank, I think, is kind of necessary, although it feels bad against Trundle. But we'll see what that build is as we are loading into game right now.
Loading on to the Rift. I think the Volibear is in a very tough spot when it comes to build, because you want to go tank because your team doesn't have a tank, but as soon as you build tank, Croatian Jungle is just going to say, haha, I'm the tank now, you're not. And so I think there's some merit to saying, hey, you should just build damage. We're just going to try to run over them. With the on the hunt from Sivir, with the shields coming in from EQ, WQR. So I think he's in a bit of a bind with the build path, and I think Lethal Rage could suffer from not having a front line, while Sojin and Croatian Jungle are going to be really a pretty beefy front line, at least for a lot of this game. For Laganma, you have Lulu shields on top of them. Zac heals a lot of health. Croatian Jungle can heal himself up as well. So I think the front line could be a bit of an issue. Front-to-back team fighting could end up being difficult for Lethal Rage if they don't get themselves ahead.
Yeah, and that said, they have a very good 1-3-1 threat with the Kale and Orianna in the late game. It's more of a 1-4 threat with the Kale in particular. And when you look at Laganma, who do they really have to match a 1-4 split push? The answer is Akali, and once Akali's out of the way, then Fair basically just is untouched throughout fights. So I think Lethal Rage definitely needs to play towards that 1-4 going mid to late.
Right, without Akali in fights, you're not going to win them. If you're Laganma, they just don't have any damage left, and you're still going to have Fair, you're going to have Suzaku. These are champions that do a ton of damage in the late game, and so I think if Lethal Rage can get themselves to that 30-35 minute mark, 3 or 4 items, they have a huge chance to win this game. Once Kale is strong, everybody has seen Kale just kind of get pentakills essentially randomly by auto-attacking. She does a ton of damage. The 600 CS late game win condition on Sivir for Fair can be huge as well. So there's a lot of ways that Lethal Rage can win this game if they can get it to late game. Laganma need to start snowballing early. They need to put this Kale behind. They want to try to get their bot lane a little bit ahead, and I think you need to get Christian ahead on the Akali. If Akali is able to outduel anybody, he is the one that can kind of take over the sideline on a split push, at least until that level 16 is hit before Andesite is back. And so kind of similar to last game, we have a comp that needs to be winning early game if they want to win this game.
Yeah, I definitely look forward to see how Laganma executes, right? Once again, burden of execution is always on the early game comp in these types of matchups. As we are just about loaded into Summoner's Rift here, going to be a couple more seconds. Any final thoughts about these comps, things that might pop out at you at the moment?
I think a lot of this is going to come down to how the early game is played around these two junglers. If they go toe-to-toe in the top lane, I think Lethal Rage is just going to kind of lose. And so I think if you are playing this Volibear, you need to come up with ways to keep your Kayle safe, but without just 2v2ing, because they're going to lose the 2v2. Almost for sure, especially before Kayle's level 6. She just doesn't do anything. She's a melee champion that wants to be a ranged champion, and so you're not going to win that. And so I think they need to be putting down some vision. They need to be protecting Kayle without fighting. She needs to be able to be safe under her turret, trying to farm up to the level 6. Once she's level 6, she'll be a lot better positioned to keep herself safe from a turret dive because she has that ultimate, and so that can help her out by a lot of time. I think they need to be putting down vision. They want to prioritize this top Scuttle Crab. I would expect Volibear to start bot side to be able to walk himself up to the top lane. I think they are also a little bit unfortunate that they are on the red side instead of the blue side. It's a little bit harder to defend the top lane, especially if you're pushed up. You can go behind around the Krugs. That can do a lot of work as well. So they need to keep this Kayle safe, but at the same time, they need to not be giving up too many dragons to the other side. And so I think Lethal Rage has to fight this balance in this game between giving up the Kayle and giving up the bot side. And so I'm interested to see how Kanavi Karsa KPD is going to do on this Volibear, because I think he is really overworked in this game. He needs to keep Kayle safe, but he also needs to keep the dragons from going down from Creation Jungle. So how he plays his early game, to me, is going to decide this game. If he's able to juggle it all, able to get some kills for his team, keep the Kayle alive, I think they can win this game. If he can't do that, if he keeps the Kayle alive but he loses 3 dragons, or if he keeps the dragons alive but Kayle goes 4-0 or 0-4, you're going to have a lot of problems. So that to me is really what this game comes down to. Is this Volibear pick? Can he keep his team safe?
Yeah, and we are on to the Rift on the blue side. It is Laogan Ma with Sojin in the top lane, Creation Jungle in the jungle, Christian X in the mid lane, Jopa 1 in AD carry, and Fico XD in support.
On the red side, it is Lethal Rage. We got Anasidus back in the top lane. We got Kanavi Karsa KPD playing the Volibear in the jungle that we've been talking about for the last 5 minutes. We have Suzaku on the Orianna in the mid lane, Fair and EQWQR playing the Sivir and Karma respectively. In the bot lane, looks like we got some 5-pointing going on. Not a whole lot happening early game.
That's not the Karma combo. Which combo is that, actually? Now I'm thinking about it.
Can't help you with that one, unfortunately. We'll keep thinking about that. We'll try to get back to you on the EQWQR situation. Could be I was going to say LeBlanc, but that doesn't make a lot of sense either. We're going to keep puzzling on that. If anybody has any thoughts, feel free to let us know on that situation. But he's going for something. He's puzzling us. Maybe that's the point, just trying to trying to make us think a little bit and not think about anything else. But fortunately, nothing happened. Level 1, everybody just kind of hanging out. A couple of wards went down top side, but I don't think enough for a huge amount of vision to be gained on either jungler.
We need a Dunk Master skin for Volibear, by the way. Also for Set. Last game I didn't get to mention it, but Set also needs a Dunk Master skin. And we're into a pause. Wouldn't be T3 League of Legends without a pause.
No, I mean, that's absolutely true. We have had a bit of an internet DC on Fico, apparently. So that's a little bit unfortunate. We are paused up in the top lane. We have a little bit of skirmishing. I think this is going to be one reasonably hard by Sojin, actually. He still has his stretching strike available that is going to flip Anaside. And the auto attack, he's going to pick up the blob as well for some health. So I think this is going to be quite a winning trade for the Zac, which is really not what Lethal Rage was looking for early game. Fico also is quite low in the bot lane. If you look at the portrait on the side, he looks like he has about 5% health. So I'm not sure if he's about to go down. We're not on that fight, so we'll see how that works out when we come out of the pause, likely because he was DC'd. So some question marks in the bot lane thus far.
Yeah, question mark pings, as it were. It's very difficult to determine what to talk about when we're this early in the game. Perhaps jungle pathing. Both junglers starting towards the bottom side of the map here. Red buff for the Trundle, blue buff for the Volley, as he also took his Gromp. Or that was Gromp, right?
Yes, I think. There's no Gromp on the map. Actually, well, it hasn't spawned yet. I don't know what we're on about. It's a minute 34. So.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, the Gromp has not spawned. We are crazy at this point. This is what happens when we go into a pause at a minute into the game. We're forgetting what time we're at. Exactly. But that will spawn in a couple seconds. Bot side starts for both these junglers. I'm not entirely sure how they're going to be moving once we come out of this pause, just because of the fact that there's fighting going on in that tri-bush, right? So we'll see if Croatian Jungle decides to just finish that, or if he decides to walk over and help his team. I would expect him to finish the red buff. He's already 4 seconds into it, as it spawns at 1 minute 30 seconds. So I think he'll finish the buff and then run to help his team if there's still a fight going on. Giving up that buff can just be really disastrous for that jungler. If you end up really far behind, you lose the fight. As Figo has now reconnected.
He has not reconnected. Apparently the PC crashed. He's got to do a full reboot. So not going to be a short pause. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick break as we get ready to start again. We will let you know. And we'll be right back with more of the of the Howling Esports League.
As level 2 has been hit first by Lethal Rage. They do have a lot of pressure here in the bot lane already.
Yeah, LGM not feeling great for that DC, but regardless, the Sivir push can only happen for so long before she runs out of mana. So you have to kind of just play around that fact, play around the fact that she doesn't have Essence Reaver yet, doesn't even have the Caulfield's Warhammer. So you have some time. I'll be interested to see which build the Ashe goes, whether it's Blade of the Ruined King start or if it's going to be Essence Reaver. Really, it's a toss-up, I think. There isn't too much in the way of tanks from the side of Lethal Rage, so perhaps not the Bork, but we'll see.
I like the Essence Reaver build a lot more here. I think just mainly for the point that you said, you don't need the Blade of the Ruined King, and it will let you get those arrows out a lot more, which is, I think, the reason they're picking Ashe in this game. I might have to hold that thought. We did see in the top lane, Flash was blown by Anasid's back at that first couple of level marks, so Croatian Jungle is now here. Might see a bit of a gank.
Frozen Path down, but that telegraphed the gank pretty hard, and Anasid back was already very far back, so should be enough to dissuade any further ganks from that Trundle. As we take a look at Kanavi Karsa KPD here, currently has a couple camps invading in onto the Trundle as he knew that gank happened topside. So some very smart jungle pathing from Kanavi Karsa to punish this Trundle going for some of these early ganks.
Yeah, really not a fan of that gank in the top lane. I think it was really telegraphed, and Anasid's back wasn't pushed up already. And so that makes the gank a lot harder. Just because you're never really going to be able to get the kill there. You maybe can get a pillar behind, but Anasid was so safe. He had the ward in the tri-bush, so very well done by him, keeping himself alive. And that's a reasonably big jungle deficit now for Croatian Jungle. That will get bigger once he realizes that his camps have been taken away, as Kanavi Karsa KPD is able to actually might be able to catch him out here in the jungle.
He's a level up, and Akali had already backed here, or was very far away, I should say. Pillar goes down. Kanavi Karsa has already taken half of the Krugs, or all the Krugs, I should say. So definitely a trade going in favor of Lethal Rage right now.
Yeah, very, very strong early start here for Kanavi Karsa KPD. He's going to get even farther ahead in jungle camps, as I said, because his are up and Croatian jungles are not. So not a great start here for the Trundle, down a level already. Just has his Gromp really to go to, and he's going to get starved out completely in this jungle. This is going very well for Kanavi Karsa. Sojin also doing quite well in the top lane. Going in for a trade on Anasid, who's doing a lot of damage back. This could be a fight that's won by the level 4 Kale. Dying to level 4 Kale is not what you want. Is the E available? Not going to work out. Sorry, Finnick. I got so excited I started doing your job for you.
No, it's fine. I was thinking, oh, it's just trades. It's just trades. It's just trades. No, it's not just trades. But here comes Croatian Jungle. Flash forward. Here comes the pillar. The pull back, and there's the first blood. Sojin picking it up as a Croatian jungler goes and does his job topside.
I think Anaside is back just probably got a little overexcited, just like I did, because he was doing so well in this fight. He kind of forgot about the jungle path. Croatian jungle had no camps up. That should have been communicated to Anaside is back because the Volibear took them all. So they're definitely not up. You know that this Trundle is going to be topside, especially because you just ran him out of his bot side jungle. I think you just have to back away there if you are the Kale. You know you can't win that fight against in the 1v2 as we saw, and that's a really big boon there for Sojin, getting that first blood money, 400 extra gold in his pocket, and he's up almost double CS as well. I think this lane is about to get very, very hard for this Kale as the Dragon has been started up.
Yeah, lane priority in the bot lane from that Sivir going towards this Dragon. I think it'll be uncontested here. So Kanavi, Karsa, KBD keeping on getting these advantages in the jungle. At the moment, Mountain Dragon always feels nice on the Volibear, especially because he is going tank volley with the Cinderhulk enchant. Don't know if Croatian Jungler will go for Cinderhulk or for the Warrior enchant quite yet. I feel like that one's kind of a toss-up in Trundle, especially in these kinds of matchups where there's only one tank on the enemy team.
Yeah, I do agree. I like the jungle start so far for the Volibear, as I've been saying like 4 times already. I'm a big fan of it. Can you tell? Level 6 has been hit for Lethal Rage's top laner in the top lane. Anaside is back, has got that range on the Kale, so that will help him out with the farming a little bit. So far, kind of checking in, we talked about early game or in the Champion Select how the Volibear needed to balance between the top side and the bot side. So far, he's doing great on the bot side. His bot lane is doing good. Mid lane is still alive. He has the Dragon. On the other hand, the top laner not doing so well, right? The Kale's down 15 CS. She's already died once. She's actually just died a second time off screen. Croatian Jungle picking up that kill. Kanavi Karsa KPD wasn't able to do anything there. So the top side is kind of turning into a disaster right now for Lethal Rage.
Yeah, the Kale does not win lanes, right? So it's not that it's unexpected. It's just that you don't want it to happen as badly as this is happening right now. Almost down half, or almost at half the total CS as we go into the replay.
Yeah, here's the replay. Anaside is back. Just has no chance, essentially, in the 1 versus 2. Sure, the ultimate's available. You're going to buy some time, but Volibear just a little bit too far away. I mean, he does a lot of damage to one target right now. He has some AP, has level 6, so he is, able to become exalted, get a little bit of extra attack speed, but it's just not enough ever to win the 1 versus 2. Those just are not fights you're ever going to win. And so, essentially, if ganks come down, they're so hard to avoid because of the stretching strike. Let's Bounce is available. And, like you said, it's expected. You just hope every time that you're not going to lose this hard. And I think right now it's probably still okay, but if a couple more deaths come through, it could turn into a game-losing situation, as we might see another gank.
Yeah, Anticide is back. Has to be very careful here on the waist, pushing in his favor. Here comes Sojin with the Elastic Slingshot. Able to get the stretching strike down as the Frozen Path comes in. The pillar down. Anticide is back. Has no ulti. Flashing back under tower. Gonna pop the Zac into the passive. But here comes Christian X. Looking for the dive under the tower. Zac will end up living for the time being. Flash in with the perfect execution and going back out. It's Christian X with the kill in the top lane.
Christian just saving his team there from, honestly, kind of a disaster of a gank. Sojin losing his passive. They weren't able to pick up the kill. Neither ultimate was available for the top laner, so they were kind of, not able to get on top of each other. Let's Bounce wasn't available. There was no Divine Judgment, unfortunately, or Divine Intervention, I believe, for Anaside. Wasn't able to keep himself safe, but Christian using the flash, I think, very well. You want to get this kill behind it by any means necessary. Loses a little bit of mid lane priority for it. Here's the back half of that. Once again, this is just a beautiful play by Christian. Let's just, enjoy that as it comes through. Perfect execution. It was perfectly executed. Going back to the E and the Shroud, away from the turret. That is just beautiful Akali play, saving his team there.
Shuriken flip flash, perfect execution, 5-point strike into the second proc of Shuriken flip and the second proc of execution out. I think that's actually EQWQR. Or sorry, that's ERQE. Something
Letters
like
are
that.
hard. Letters are hard. He's taking inspiration. Let's just say that from the enemy support. But a lane swap has come through. I think this is also really smart. You can get a 3 versus 1. You have the Ash Arrow onto Anaside. Actually, we don't have an Ash Arrow as that has gone off screen.
Oh, well, it lands mid lane, but unfortunately, Oriana was nowhere near anyone else. So, Jopo 1, at least he hits a target.
Yeah, I mean, 1 for 1, right on. And the accuracy, that counts 100%. He has landed every arrow. Suzaku is just kind of hanging out in the mid lane and then suddenly gets hit by an arrow and is like, well, I guess I'm just hanging out for 3.5 seconds and goes about his business. Normally, might see an engage, though.
Oh, man, the 5-point strike and the sombrero misses. Suzaku forced splash into the perfect execution from Christian X. A solo kill in the mid lane. You can't stop this man if you tried.
Yeah,
as the tower goes down to the Rift Herald top.
You can't write this stuff. That was beautifully done by Christian. Once again, dodging the shockwave and or missing the shockwave. We can argue about that at a different time. But Suzaku just completely outplayed in the mid lane, uses his flash, and still goes down to the Scally 2-0. This is exactly what Christian was looking for.
Yeah, just absolutely insane, man. Like, oh, every time I see an Akali do that, I'm just like, I'm glad I'm not up against this Akali. This Akali did so well. Here's the replay.
Let's take a look one more time. Okay, so the ball goes out. Christian doing fine. Just misses the Q even. Doesn't even need that. There's the first perfect execution. Into the Shuriken. Goes back to it. Q as well. A nice walk out of the shockwave. Goes back in with the E. The flash is just followed by the second activation of perfect execution. Another Q comes through and dodges the tower shot with that. Walks himself out, I should say, and just very well done. We should quit gushing about it as we are on the Dragon Dance, but Christian X doing a lot of work for his team. Gunblade will be completed very soon, I do feel, as we have a teleport coming through.
Yeah, wanting to play around this dragon. Second of the game, Ocean Dragon. Either going to be an Infernal or a Cloud Soul. I feel like Infernal Soul is kind of what you want if you're Laogan Ma. Helps snowball even more with that Akali burst damage, as it looks like this dragon will be uncontested.
Yeah, not any real way to contest that. Kayle in the top lane just doesn't have teleport, isn't very strong, so you kind of just have to give that one up. You mentioned the Infernal Soul is quite strong on the Yanma. Can you imagine a Cloud Soul on Lethal Rage at this point? With the Silver Ultimate, with the speed ups from Karma, that would be a very fast Volibear at this point.
That would be extremely fast.
Yeah, I mean, he's cooking if that comes through for them. So we'll have to see how it works out. Actually, we will not see how it works out because it's an Infernal Soul. So there will be no zooming Volibear, only a little bit of a zoom, a mini zoomy, as it were, for him in this game. As the AD carries have now rotated into the mid lane, where I expect they will remain for the good portion of the remainder of the game, just clearing out the waves. Sivir presses W and the waves disappear, especially once she has a little bit of crit under her belt. I would expect that Essence Reaver to come through very shortly. I do want to mention also the build for Ashe. We were talking about whether it would be Essence Reaver or Blade of the Ruin King. He really flipping the script on us here and has gone for...
Perfect execution gets caught in the sombrero, though. Looking for a bit more, playing in the Glacial Shroud, gets the E, the second proc, gets in a killing spree. Now EQWQR is on the run. The 1v2 outplays. Holy crap.
I think we're just sounding like a broken record at this point, Finnick, right? Every time we have a couple minutes, and then Christian X just kind of flips the script on somebody. 1 versus 2 there, and kills Suzaku. Doesn't even need his flash, he just needs his ultimate. Gunblade was completed. I was going to touch on that in a moment. And he just kind of demonstrated it for me. I don't even need to say anything. He's just an illustrator on this one, as Croatian Jungle now here in the bot lane to back off EQWQR. I think this is going to be a lot of plates going over in favor of Laogan Ma.
Yeah, just really well played from Christian X here. That said, we look and we see the Monamune coming out from Jopo 1 as we take a look into the replay here.
Let's just enjoy this again. Even gets hit by the shockwave this time, but he's in the Glacial Shroud. Or the Twilight Shroud, I should say. There's no Glacial anywhere. And he waits for the second activation of Perfect Execution. There's the auto attack, the 5-point strike into the second activation of Perfect Execution. If that Shuriken landed also, which he missed there at the end onto EQWQR, I think it would have been a double kill or even a flash at the minimum blown from this Karma. Another beautiful play by Christian X. He is just taking over this game right now, and he's going to have control of the side lanes for quite a long time.
Yeah, and this is the execution that we really wanted to see from the Laogan Ma comp. Getting ahead early, we're at the 15-minute mark. They're up 3.7k as they try to push in towards this mid lane outer turret.
Sojin on the side. We might see a dive coming through in a couple of seconds. Bit of lightning has been used. There's the engage.
Well,
maybe not.
Maybe not.
A little over here.
You know, you can't really hit a slam dunk with no hoop.
True. That is true. I mean, he did clear out the wave and he got him off the turret. So I think the objective, that may have just been the objective. We got a little bit baited by that engage. Usually Volibears do not ult for wave clear, but it worked out there. I mean, sometimes when you just see a scary bear just flying at you, your first instinct is to run and then ask questions later. And I think that's essentially what Laganma did there. They kind of pulled off the dive. I think they might have still been able to go for it, actually. But they decided not to, pulling off, which I think makes sense. If you are unsure, diving a turret, probably not the greatest thing to be doing. So it makes a lot of sense to me. They will still be able to get this mid tower at some point. Fair will pose them a little bit of problems as they are clearing out in the middle with that W. We take a little bit of a look at the gold right now. It's mostly Fair that is carrying his team so far, has, you know, about 800, 600 more than everybody else on his team. On the Sivir so far, 0-0-0, working toward that 600 CS win condition that Sivir is so famous for. So we'll see when she's able to start coming online with those ricochets, doing a lot of damage. I would fear for her, though. One spell shield is not enough against Christian. You need like 3 or 4 spell shields if you really want to be staying safe against this Akali. So we'll see how he and EQWQR are able to keep themselves safe as we get, you know, into that mid game, into that late game phase of Akali, where she just kind of one shots anybody that looks at her funny.
So what you're saying is Edge of Night Sivir.
Sounds pretty good to me, honestly. I mean, I'm going Edge of Night. I'm going Wit's End and a Zanya. You know, why not? Just really flip the script up here. It's really innovative, and I think it would be pretty awful.
You forgot the Banshee's Veil.
Oh, true. I mean, let's just go tank Sivir, right? Tank AD carry. It sounds pretty good. I
mean,
tank AD carry. I think let's just move on from that. I think the crit build's still going to be better. You really just want to stay in the backline if you're Fair. You want to just throw out the crits with the ricochet, let those just kind of randomly kill people. And I think he probably can stay far enough back with his ultimate, with Kale ultimate as well. I'm not totally sure of that. I think Christian X is just really popping off in this game. But at least for the moment, I think Fair should have a fighting chance. Might see an engagement in top lane.
Sojin just wants to clear the wave with the Elastic Slingshot and make sure it bounces back and equalizes instead of the slow push being built by Anticide back there. All that being said, though, we've tried to touch on this like 3 different times. Manamune on Ashe. What?
Yeah. Well, so Manamoon has become a reasonably standard secondary build, if that makes sense, for a lot of champions in the bot lane. It provides a lot of AD late game once that is transformed into the Muramana, just because of the way that it works with the mana scaling. You'll have a ton of AD from it. It is just slow, is what you're trading off. And so Jopa really going for that kind of late game build on the Ashe. He will do more damage late, but for now he just doesn't do anything. He doesn't have any cooldown reduction really, like you would with the Essence Reaver. He doesn't have the tank shred that he would have from the Blade of the Ruin King. So it's really a late game investment that he's going for that I think makes some sense, just because your Akali is already so strong. You don't really need early game pressure, but he is going to need to stack that one up. We'll see when he's able to transform that into the Muramana. Ideally, he would have that in the next couple of minutes. I'm not too sure how well he's been stacking that one, so we'll see when that does come through, but not the build I was expecting. I don't love it. I think the Essence Reaver is just worth it for the cooldown reduction, but we'll see if he can make it work.
Yeah, that being said, meanwhile, bot lane turret goes down, last outer turret taken by Laogan Ma, as well as the Infernal Dragon. So that is 2 Drakes now to Laogan Ma, the Infernal and the Ocean. 2 more Infernal Drakes is the Soul, and that is something that you're going to want to look to play for during this mid game, especially with the Akali on your team, looking for even more kills, more skirmishes, and more burst damage.
Infernal Dragon, Infernal Soul Akali sounds remarkably scary at this point. I don't think Christian X needs any more damage in this game. I think the only thing scarier than that would be the Ocean Soul, if he just kind of healed up the entire time, because that would be remarkably terrifying, I feel. Creation Jungle walking himself out of harm's way. We should look at the gold just a little bit. 4,500 gold lead in favor of Laganma, so not a completely insurmountable total yet, but I think that will continue to expand as they just have so much pressure on the map, looking to get kills at all fronts. They're stealing away the blue buff in the jungle. There's just nothing that Lethal Rage can really do to fight back.
Yeah, and Christian X, meanwhile, playing on that 1-4, we kind of expected this to be the win con for Lethal Rage, but now that Anticide is back, has been just so far behind, now 2 levels down on the Akali, it's just, I mean, look at this. Like, come on.
Yeah, it just looks painful up at the top lane. He's, he just throws so many auto attacks in, and Sojin just kind of heals up and deals back as good as he's getting dealt. I want to mention the sorcery shoes for Sojin. Going for that mana penetration, that's not a thing. Going for that magic penetration, I think very smart against Anastasis back. Not going to be building any magic resist at all. So that will really increase Sojin's damage as well. And he looks like he's doing very well for himself up in the top lane. His Kale is still only level 12, only has one item, as Zach now has to get himself away.
Yeah, Zach, of course, very easy. This is a Mene Baron.
Yeah, we're 20 minutes in. Bear's been started up. Teleport committed to that as well. Christian X is there.
They don't know.
Yeah, it's not even been checked yet. Volibear walked up, but he didn't actually get a ward, and he doesn't have a ward. He has no way to see into this pit. His team's now coming. And they just, yeah, they walk away. Muraman has been transformed, so that's great for Jopa, but that play just did not work out for LGM. They wasted a decent amount of time doing that, so that's good for Lethal Rage. They'll be able to pick up a little bit more tempo from that, pick up some farm, as well as everybody from LGM just kind of spent 20 seconds hitting the Baron, and now they're all just kind of resetting.
Yeah, difficult to take with an Ashe with only one crit item. As I said, Runon's Hurricane always feels very nice on her when she's clearing waves, helping her farm up. 2 levels up on the Sivir, by the way.
Yeah. On the other hand, Runon's Hurricane does not feel great when you're hitting Baron, because there's only one Baron. So Runon's Hurricane, possibly like the worst AD carry item to hit Baron with. It just does not help at all. So I like the effort, right? I mean, if they could have burned it down, I think it would have been worth it. And I think it was worth the effort because maybe you do more damage, maybe they don't check at all. We're going to see a fight here in the jungle. Christian X could be going for a bit of a skirmish.
Blaskan, 5-point strike, just stealing it with the Shuriken Flip and dabbing with the Pangu. Meanwhile, in the top lane, Let's Bounce already popped. Flashback from EQWQR to make sure Suzuku stays alive with the Mantra Shield.
Nice save there in the top lane, but Summoner invested once again, just the ultimate that came through from Sojin. So a nice win there in the top lane for LGM. In the bot lane, Anaside is back going for a recall. Maybe we'll have an Asher's Tooth. Haven't really been tracking the gold for him thus far, but he really needs to get to 3-4 items before he really wants to start carrying his team, and he's so far away from that at this point. He's at 1.5, 1 in 60%, we can say. 1.6 items for him there, 0-3. They really just need to keep themselves alive, and they're doing okay. They've kind of stabilized the gold, but it's only 5,000 at this point. They have Sivir for wave clear. They have that late game Kale. Lethal Rage is maybe 5 or 10 minutes away from making this game very competitive. I think this next Dragon is going to be very important for them, though.
Yeah, Christian X, meanwhile, completes the Leandry's Torment. Not my favorite item on Akali. I understand why you want to go for this, but I feel like Deathcap or Void Staff is better in this particular instance. Just to give you much more damage. EQWQR might be caught up by the Trundle, though, as the Dragon spawns.
Yeah, Dragon's up. Everybody is here for Lethal Rage. They want to go for this. We're going to see a fight straight away here.
Right back into the backline goes the Akali. Kale pops the Lethal Judgment, but she still falls anyway. Christian X gets a double kill. Looking for more. Onto the Sivir. Anticide is back. Tries to get out of the fight, but is still taken out by the Akali as the Dragon still gets taken over by Lao Ganma. Triple kill for Christian X as Lethal Rage kites out of the fight.
Yeah, they are able to get themselves away, at least for now. Croatian Jungle still on the chase. That was just a tale of 2 fights. Gonna have to hold that thought. The fight's continuing.
Killer. Here comes Zach into the stretching strikes. Pulls back Suzuku. We'll just make our way out with the command protect. But regardless, very well played from Lao Ganma there. They grabbed the Baron, soul point, they grabbed the Dragon at soul point for them now. Gonna be able to take this mid lane tower as the Karma really just doesn't have the wave clear to deal with this.
And, of course, Caster Curse. As soon as you say they're going to take the tower, they just walk themselves away. But, yeah, great fight for Lao Ganma. It was kind of a tale of 2 fights. Jopa kind of got sidelined on the backside, more, on the left side, as we should say, of that Dragon, whereas Christian X is just ripping through the backline. So they did end up losing the Ashe, but they still picked up the Dragon. They still picked up those 3 kills as well. It was a good Divine Judgment from Anastasis back, who tried to keep his support alive, but just doesn't have the damage. Here's that fight. Once again, we see the engage come through. A nice flanking effort here. We're going to go... EQWQR takes so much damage early, the Divine Judgment has to be used on him. In the backside, we see Jopa getting taken out, and that's fine. He's buying as much time as he can, while Christian is just ripping through everybody else. He's already picked up 2 kills, gets in on the Anastasis back, the Dragon picked up by Croatian Jungle, and so yeah, we lose Jopa, but he's still alive in the backline. He finally goes down, but you're losing 1 kill for getting 3 more kills than your Akali and the Dragon. You take that trade any day. A really nice flanking maneuver there by LGM. Lethal Rage was just trying to pick up that kill on the Dragon as quickly as they could. They weren't able to do it in time, and they paid the price.
Yeah, and meanwhile, in this top side of the map, they chase a little bit too hard, but unfortunately, Ford at the side of Lethal Rage not able to punish that all too much. Christian Jungle, meanwhile, in the mid lane, though, puts Pillar down. Lots of damage coming in from Jopa.
Oh my. Holy cow.
Okay.
That's a lot
He's
of
not
attack
even on
speed
the
he's got.
IE yet. That's not even on IE. They're onto the Baron.
Yeah, that's a lot of attack speed coming through. I mean, you do have the attack speed buff from Fico on the Lulu, as well as lethal tempo, plus all the attack speed he's built so far. So I think it does make sense. They have a lot more Baron damage than they did 5 minutes ago, Finnick, and it's going down pretty quickly, down to 7k. We'll see if Lethal Rage wants to fight this. I don't know if they can. We're going to see the engage.
Oh, here comes the engage. 2 men into the Let's Bounce. Jopa picks up the kill. That's Divine Judgment is already called. Here comes the Akali, though. Able to get one. Trying to find another. On to Sojin. Has the passive. No, he doesn't. But it doesn't matter as he gets
They're
the
still
kill
on the Baron.
to the Sliver anyway. And Slide is back, meanwhile, going to try to get some damage down onto Sojin. They do it, but the Baron still goes down. 2 for 2. The shutdown goes over to Lethal Rage, but they lose the Baron.
That was a 2 for 2 fight in which most of the LGM team was hitting the Baron. The entire time. The bot lane was not present in that fight. Still a 2 for 2. Christian actually got taken out relatively quickly by Anastasis back. So I think there is hope for the late game. If some crowd control can land onto this Akali, she could find herself taken down almost immediately. In these fights, we're going to see this replay. So Sojin goes over the wall while his team is still hitting the Baron, right? He is the top laner. This is not a jungle Zac. He can afford to waste this time. Croatian jungle, Fico, and Jopa end up going back on the Baron. A little bit of help comes through from that Ashe before he just goes back. And Christian just taken down immediately, actually by the Ricochet. The IE was completed for Sivir, so that is dangerous in the late game. Ricochet's still going to hit her, even if she's in her shroud, even if she's, moving around a lot. Ricochet is not a skill shot. Anastasis back picks up a nice kill onto Sojin, but they do lose the Baron, right? So 2 for 2 in the fight. That in and of itself looked good, but it was like a 2 versus 4 for most of that fight. LGM, they still pick up the Baron. Dragon Soul in a minute. They're still in a very good position.
Yeah, and Anastasis back with the Divine Judgment was able to keep himself from going down there. I thought it wouldn't be quite enough with the perfect execution, but was able to take down Christian, as he said, with that Ricochet. IE now completed on the Ashe as well, so still almost a full item up on the Sivir, which, especially considering you went for the Monamude first item, is really kind of feels bad, man, for Sivir. She's almost to the 300 CS, but Ashe is there first.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, it's a 600 CS win condition. It's not 300 CS. He still has to get a lot more minions coming through before he's going to be at that late game win condition. Very nice farming, though, by Jopa so far with that 300 CS, the first in the game. Has Flame Horizoned the enemy top laner, so that's something, at least for him to be proud of himself for. A lot of items coming through this Ashe. He's quite scary in his own right? We've been talking about Christian the entire game, but it's also Jopa that is doing a lot of damage for his team. We see a teleport in the mid lane. We might see another pincer move on the Dragon. We just saw this 5 minutes ago. Will Lethal Rage fall into the same trap? Zac's in the bush on the flank. Croatian jungle as well.
There's the jungle gets the domination down. Here comes the Zac and the ult from the Orianna. Not able to do enough to fight. It's just a disaster. Double kill coming in for Christian X as he goes back onto the back line. Gotta find the kill on the Suzuki if they will let him. Oh, tries to find the shuriken flip, goes back to a minion. Into the 5-point strike, pops the Zonu's hourglass and the distortion. Gets the kill. A bit of BM getting taken by Christian X, but the dragon will still go over, and it's a 4 for 1.
Yeah, they still get the soul. That was pretty funny at the end. You have to admire the BM at least a little bit. Teleport coming through. Actually, a fight at the dragon still going on.
Suzuki does not have the shockwave, has to be very careful, gets pulled back in by Sojin, flash forward, gonna try to find the command attack, command distortion, but can't find it. On to Christian X, but this will stop the dragon for the time being. Aggression still on to Sojin.
Teleport. They're gonna try to take it. This is gonna be another fight.
Play. They're looking for more, but the Let's Bounce is already there, pulls them back. The pillar's down. Here comes Jopa in with the W. Sojin gets ulted by the Lulu in the nick of time. Shockwave comes through, but it doesn't matter as the soul goes over. Suzuki goes down to the Ashe, but she still gets traded back. Shutdown goes over to Suzuki, but it's 2-4-2 as the respawns start coming back in for LGM. Pika flashes over the wall. It's actually a 2 for 1, and the dragon still goes over to Lao Gan Ma. They have the soul on the Akali and the Ashe.
What a wild series of events. That was almost 2 fights in 1. In the end, LGM does end up winning it despite, some mishaps there at the end. They get the Dragon Soul, which is what they came for. They also killed the mid lane inhibitor. So I think they're just going to need one more push, one more fight, and they should be able to end the game. But Lethal Rage buying themselves a little bit more time. They're at 3 items on the Sivir right now. They're going to try to get to 3 items. Let's see this fight one more time. Arrow comes in. So Karsa on the Volibear going to get taken down pretty early on this fight. Has to blow that cleanse. He actually keeps himself alive for a lot longer. The engage comes through for Christian, and we see the Divine Judgment comes down, but it just doesn't quite do enough. They're not able to get a lot of damage down onto Christian, who's able to one-shot the Sivir. We talked about her being potentially quite strong, wasn't able to do so, and then the AoE damage just comes through. Jopa's free-firing in the backline. Christian also essentially free-hitting the backline, picks up 2 kills. Isn't quite able to pick up this last kill, as I guess we're gonna watch the BM once again. BMs him, lands the Shuriken, tries to go back in for it. He's gonna go with the Zanya, and it was just a comedy of errors essentially for him. He goes down. But in the end, still a win for LGM, and I think they just need to force one more fight. They should be able to win this game.
Yeah, Baron is up in 1 minute and 10 seconds as well, so they can start fighting for that. Rapid Fire Cannon completed on the Ashe now, so 3 crit items. As the BF Sword will be going into, I would assume, the Bloodthirster or the Guardian Angel from that. Yep. Essence Reaver would be a bit late, so...
I think you go GA here. I think you just need to keep yourself alive. Your team is so far ahead, you don't need more damage from something like a Bloodthirster or an Essence Reaver. I think you just need to keep yourself safe. Maybe you get one shot. Even if you do get one shot, you still come back up then. So I think the Guardian Angel is the best choice. It might just be academic at this point because one more fight could be the end of the game, and I'm not entirely sure he's going to be able to get another recall in before we have that fight. So I think it's just going to be a couple of seconds before they maybe try to go for a tower dive in this top lane inhibitor, although they are backing off. The Baron's up in 20 seconds, so they may just look for this objective, just kind of secure the game and play by the book.
Yeah, and Akali, meanwhile, building in towards yet another item that is not Rabadon's Death Cap. Oh, there we go. There, just as I say it, needlessly large rod gets purchased. Thank you. Thank you.
Take a look at the gold, actually, briefly here. There's actually 2,000 more gold on Jopa than there is on Christian. And that's the power of farm right there. He has almost 100 more farm. Then his mid laner has 2,000 more gold, by far the richest member in this game. That's why he's on 4.5 items so far, and Christian's only on 3.5. So both of these champions do have a ton of impact. This has to be a mostly uncontested Baron, right? I mean, maybe you go for a steal, but I don't think there's any world in which you're winning a fight around this Baron, especially with Kayle in the bot lane, no TP.
Yeah, and this just melts to the Ashe right now. Here comes Christian back to the back line. Volibear gonna pop the ulti regardless. Baron goes down though.
Nice arrow.
The enemy jungler goes down. Arrow hits. Sojin picks up the kill. Here comes Christian doing another one. That was just an instant delete. Anticide just split pushing best he can. Level 16 on the kill. Might be a little bit too late. As the TP VM comes in from Christian X. Turret goes down. Akali goes in with perfect execution. Picks up the kill. And Sojin gets the kill on to Fair. And that should be all she wrote for this game. Lao God Ma improved to 2-1. Well, Lethal Rage pick up their first loss. Common theme between both of these best of ones. As Jopa just deletes the Orianna. Divine Judgment comes back down. Anticide is back, still falls though as the ace comes through. And GG, Lao God Ma improves to 2-1.
Yeah, congratulations to them. Everybody we cast today is now 2-1 in the league. So we have a bit of a tie at the top of the table. Everybody has now taken at least one loss in this league. So very well played to Lao God Ma in this game. They definitely played around their win condition. They got Christian really far ahead. And honestly, Jopa as well got very strong, very quietly, right? He was sitting in the back line most of the time, just getting a lot of farm for himself. And we saw on that Baron finally melting it down, doing a ton of damage for himself in that game. At the end, really helping his team out, helping Christian with some of that damage. But we are going to step away very briefly here. We have a 3-minute break. When we come back, we will have an interview with the MVP of the game. That is Christian on the Akali. And we will have a giveaway for you all. So we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Make sure you stick around for that interview and that giveaway. We'll see you on the other side of this break.
Suck me in small, breathe me in and let me go. Filling the lungs inside you, and the blackened eyes make my way into your mind. Just to know what you knew. Restless every time we start locking eyes. sink to your heart to find you. Open up your eyes till you're blinded by the lies, so you can see what you do. Restless every time we start locking eyes. Lost control. Oh, it's paradise with a nasty bite out. In the dead of the night, teardrops on the floor. The pain is over. Feel the darkness take control.
Welcome back, everybody, here to Howling eSports Season 1 production. We are in the post-game of that game number 2. Laganma versus Lethal Rage. Laganma with a very nice game for themselves, coming out on top, and I can announce that we will have Christian in the call in just a couple of seconds here for that interview. So looking forward to chatting with him, popping off, of course, on the Akali. That is what you always like to see on those assassins. So interesting to talk to him as he has now entered the call. Christian, welcome. Congratulations on the win. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good.
Feeling good is always what we like to see. We just have a couple of questions for you. How did you guys kind of prepare for this game? You were up against the 2-0 team, the other undefeated team in the league. Was it kind of just what you were always doing for prep? Were you prepping extra hard for this game? Like, kind of how was the team atmosphere going into this game, knowing you were playing against the undefeated team?
Well, I knew the enemies. We didn't prepare too much. I knew what they were gonna pick, and I was pretty confident we will win.
All right, so talking about that draft there, the Zac top lane and the Akali taken in that last segment of the draft, was that kind of a planned thing, or what made you make these particular pick decisions, and how do you feel this picks turned out for you guys?
Zac top is his special champion, and I picked Akali mid because they banned Azir and Cassio, and I had nothing left.
Makes sense to me on that. How do you feel about the matchup in the mid lane? We saw you against the Orianna. You looked very comfortable in this, picking up a couple of solo kills throughout the game. Is this a matchup that you think is favorable for Akali, or it just happened to work out for you? What are your thoughts on the Akali versus Orianna matchup?
Yana is pretty good against Akali if she's good, but she can get punished really hard if she misses or goes too far in the lane.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw a lot of punishing coming through from you in this game. I have one more question before we let you go here. Kind of how is the team coordination for you guys as you're going forward into the season? You're 2-1 now with a positive win rate. Some teams take a little bit longer to mesh. How is the synergy with you guys in this team?
The synergy is pretty good. We just say go and we go, and we see how it goes, and that's it.
We say go and we see how it goes. I think that is a valid set of words to live by here. Well, thank you very much for the interview, and congratulations again on the win. It was a pleasure to watch you play that Akali. Moving forward here, we do have a bit of a giveaway going on, folks. So you can enter yourself to win a black Howling eSports t-shirt with a white logo on the front. Pretty nice t-shirt. I would recommend it. To enter said giveaway, you must type the letters HEL in the chat. That would be Howling eSports League, the first letters of that. HEL in the chat, all caps, and we will get that giveaway, the winner, in just a couple of minutes. You have a few minutes to enter HEL in the chat once again to win yourself. Be entered for a chance to win yourself a black Howling eSports t-shirt with a white logo that is courtesy of us to support you all. Thanking you guys so much for watching that. We have a couple minutes here while we kind of break down that game, while we wait for that giveaway to be kind of completed. We should also have the standings up in a couple of minutes, but yeah, there they are actually, as I cut myself off. A lot of teams are 2-1. Everybody in this league has won 2 games and lost 1 game, essentially. We saw 2-0 versus 1-1 matchups today, and the 1-1 team did win all of those. So, Finnick, it's a pretty close league at this point. It's pretty much anybody's game.
Yeah, once again, about halfway through the season here. Next week is week 4. So these teams are going to start to distance themselves from one another in the coming weeks. But at the moment, really well played from the teams that we saw today. Lauganma and, of course, Galactic's eSports did very well. On top of that, Lethal Rage and Kralovinia Serbia, despite losing, still looked very solid. Had some very bright spots, especially in that first game. Kralovinia Serbia, while they didn't necessarily execute on their comp perfectly, did have some very good fights. Regardless, that said, slight mistake in the standings. Fantastic Esports is 1 and 2. So unfortunate for them. Gaming team Kronvare did in fact go to 2-1 today, as Harmony currently routing out the standings at 0-2. So a 5-way tie for that first place position at the moment, going into week 4. Any thoughts on these games as we continue to wait for the drawing to take place?
Well, just to get on the standings, just for a couple of seconds, we can get back to the game. Of course, I think it's also really has to be heartening for those lower tier teams. You're in 6th and 7th, but you're still only a couple of games behind the front runners, right? We're only 3 games into the season, so anybody still has a chance to fight for those top positions. It's not like there's a couple of teams that are just running away with the league and people are 4 games behind, right? Everybody still has a chance, and so I think really all these teams need to just get down on the grind, go into that next set of games with a better mindset, refresh yourselves, realize that you're still in this thing, and that you can still win it. So I think that is really what we want to be seeing from these teams. It's anybody's game, anybody can win. But moving on from that, we do have a winner of the giveaway. It is Lino Fan. Congratulations for winning. Linofen, perhaps. Not too sure about the pronunciation. I apologize about that. But congratulations. You have won yourself a black Howling eSports t-shirt with the white logo there on the front. So I do thank you all for watching. Thanks for participating in the giveaway. Somebody will contact you about said t-shirt. So congratulations for that. And thank you all for watching. We do appreciate the support that you have shown to the Howling eSports League here as we've kind of been fighting through some technical difficulties today, but I do hope you all enjoyed. I think the games definitely were good. We saw a really excellent set of games today, 2 kind of dominating wins by these teams. Lauganma winning that game here that we just cast, so it was very nice to see that as well. That is going to do it for us tonight on the broadcast. We thank you all so much for watching. We do hope you enjoyed. On behalf of myself, my color caster, Philip Finnick Nickerson, I am Carl Jarl Krieger. Yup, that's not right. Carl Krieger. I cannot say my own name. We thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Good night.
See the world and just show them what it really means to live life golden. Yeah, we're golden, baby girl, we're golden. They're about to see us shine, cause we're golden. They can't ever break us down, cause we're golden. They're about to see us glow, cause we're golden. Yeah, we're golden, baby girl, we're golden. They're about to see us shine, cause we're golden. They can't ever break us down, cause we're golden. They're about to see us glow. Golden. Got the devil in your eyes. You went into me, my surprise. Say what you wanna say, I won't go back. If you wanna hit the road, then let's go then. Let's just go and see the world and just show them what it really means to live life golden. Yeah, we're golden, baby girl, we're golden. Shine, cause we're golden. They can't ever break us down. we're golden. They can't ever break us down, cause we're golden. They about to see us glow, cause we're golden. Yeah, we're golden, baby girl, we're golden. They about to see us shine, cause we're golden. They can't ever break us down, cause we're golden. They about to see us glow, cause we're golden. Got the devil in your eyes. You went and took me by surprise. Say what you wanna say, I won't go back. If you wanna hit the road, then let's go then. Let's just go and see the world and just show